This is Jarrod Horak, and this is my latest handicapping video. And in this video, I'm going to analyze the Grade 3 Ohio Derby at Thistledown for Saturday, June 22nd. I'm going to go through the field. I'll give out my top choice and wagering strategies as well. If you're interested in my full card analysis this summer from Del Mar, you can find those full cards at the runawayhorse.com on my sales page. Del Mar runs from July 20th through September 8th. I'm going to be covering full cards every day. You can purchase the entire meet, weekly and weekend packages, or individual full cards. So go over to the runawayhorse.com on my sales page for more details. And if you're interested in a bonus free pick every day, you can find that free pick at the runawayhorse.com. My Better Bets blog, if you just click on the link at the top of my website, it says Better Bets, click there. We'll take you over to my Better Bets page, and there you can check out my free picks each day from across the country. And for these videos, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Let's keep this YouTube channel growing. And now we'll get into the analysis of the 13th race at Thistledown for Saturday, June 22nd, the Grade 3 $500,000 Ohio Derby. This race is for 3-year-olds traveling 1.1 miles on the main track. Scheduled post time is 6 p.m. Eastern. Doesn't seem to be a lot of early speed in this race, so pace could be key to how this result plays out. Frizzante is number one. He has early pressing speed, but he rallied from off the pace at Parks to win a 1-mile race, or actually just miss in a 1-mile race last time. He rallied, he was right there with the lead, and then he ended up missing by a nose at 5-to-1 odds. So for him, he's 1 for 9 lifetime, 2 seconds, and 3 third-place finishes. He's shown positional speed in the past, so with the inside post and early pressing speed, expect him to be forwardly placed. Gould's Gould is another one that's capable of being forwardly placed for trainer Kenny McPeak. He's only run 5 times with a win, a second, and a third. His 7-furlong debut, he was an even 4th. They moved him over to the turf course at Keeneland second time out. That was last fall. He was 6th, so he split a 12-horse field that day. Then he returned on March 30th this year in a 6-furlong race at Oaklawn. He rallied from 6th place to break his maiden by a head, and he did have Lasix that day. That's the only time he had Lasix, so his only career victory was the only time that he had Lasix. And then they stretched him out in the Bathhouse Row Stakes. That was at 1 1/8 miles at Oaklawn, and that was on April 20th. And he stalked the pace, and he finished 3rd, beaten 4 lengths. Last time out, the restricted Sir Barton Stakes and the Preakness undercard on a muddy, speed-favoring track. He got up on the pace that day. He had a clear lead in the stretch. He couldn't hold it. Corporate Power beat him by a nose, and he was able to just hold second by a neck. And then the top 3 were well clear of the rest of the runners. But he had the race flow in his favor last time out, and then since that race, he did come back and have a bullet workout on the training track at Saratoga. 4 furlongs, 48-3. That was best of 12. So for Gould's Gould, Brian Hernandez Jr., he's ridden him twice, and both times that he rode, first by a head, second by a nose. So Hernandez rides him well, and he'll probably try to get him up on the pace in this race. Charleston is next, and this horse is a maiden. 6 starts, 1 second, 2 third-place finishes. He's adding blinkers in this race. He's probably one that's overmatched in here. He was 3rd in a maiden special weight race last time, rallying from off the pace, beaten 5 lengths. He was in the Southwest Stakes earlier this year against Mystic Dan. That was in the mud. He was 96-1. He was 9th, beaten 22 lengths in an 11-horse field. He just looks overmatched in this race. He does have 3 bullet workouts for this race at Thistledown, his first start since February, and he's switching barns. He was in the William Fyers barn, and earlier on, Brad Cox had this one last year, and he was claimed for $75,000. Now Michael Roan has him, and look for him, as I said, for probably try to get involved a little bit from off the pace, but he looks overmatched. Copper Tax, he's one that's a win contender in this race for trainer Gary Capuano, and this one is 7 for 10 lifetime, so he just has a nose for the wire. He likes to win races, and he can run on anything. He's 3 for 5 on a fast track, 4 for 5 on a wet track, and he can be up on the pace like he was multiple times during his 2-year-old campaign when he broke his maiden dueling on the lead for a maiden claiming 50 in a sprint. That was a wet fast track. He pressed and won his next start on a fast track at 5.5 furlongs. His next start was in the mud. He won that one easy. In the mud again, when he stretched out, he wired the field. Then the James Lewis Stakes at Laurel Park last fall, he rallied from 7th place, so he went last to first that day. And then in the Grade 2 Remsen, never really got involved on that speed-favoring wet track. And then in the Sam F. Davis, that was a disappointing effort. I actually picked him on top that day. He was 9-1. He just never picked up his feet. He was 10th, beaten 19 lengths. But then he won back-to-back stakes races since then. In the slop in the private term stakes, he had the inside post. He was sitting in mid-pack, and he got up to win by a neck. The Federico Tessio Stakes, a win and you're in for the Preakness Stakes at Laurel. And that was on April 20th from post 10 in a 10-horse field, stumbled at the start, rallied from off the pace, and he got up by 3/4 of a length. They considered the Preakness. They decided to back off, find an easier spot, and now he's probably going to be competitive in this race. J.G. Turrialba, who rode in his last 2 victories, stays aboard. Gary Capuano, decent stats with shippers. He shows a profit. So look for Copper Tax with a versatile running style. We'll see what they do. His last couple, he came from off the pace, but as I mentioned, multiple times last year, he was closer to the pace. Uncle Heavy is one that likes to rally from off the pace for Robert Reed Jr. Michael Sanchez is his rider, and he was aboard for his first 5 career starts, and he won 3 of those races. Won his career debut at Parks, and then he won a little state-bred stakes race at Parks late last year, around 2 turns. And then he won the Grade 3 Wither Stakes, a Kentucky Derby points race that was in the mud, and he rallied nicely. He had a wide trip, and he was able to get up by a nose, so that 1 1/8 distance didn't pose him any trouble whatsoever. And in the Wood Memorial, post 12 in a 12-horse field, he was just hung out wide throughout. He was 5th, beaten 11 lengths. The Preakness last time out, speed favoring wet track, just never was able to get into contention, and he was a well-beaten 6th in that 8-horse field. This is a better spot, reconnecting with his winning rider. Look for him from off the pace, possibly for the exotics. Deposition is next for Uriah St. Louis. This one's 2 for 11 lifetime, and a victory last time out at Delaware, an optional claiming race against much lesser company, adding Lasix for the first time. Loses Lasix here. He has tactical speed, doesn't look good enough. He fell in the Wood Memorial. He was vanned off that day, and he was 8th, beaten 13 lengths in the Sir Barton. He was in the Gotham. He was 6th, beaten 14. The Withers, 4th, beaten 3. The Heft Stakes, 7th, beaten 13 lengths. Go all the way back to the Rocky Run last year. Copper Tex won that one. He was 4th, beaten 12. So every time that he's been in the stakes ranks, he really hasn't been competitive. Who's the King is a possibility to set the pace in here for trainer Safi Joseph Jr. Rocco Bowen is aboard, and he was claimed out of a maiden claiming $35,000 turf route in February. Mark Cassie had him, and then Safi Joseph Jr. moved him over to the main track, and he was briefly in 6th early. He made an early move, bid for the lead, pulled away, and won by more than 7 lengths under Paco Lopez. Starter allowance race last time at Churchill Downs. He stalked the pace. He came up empty. He was 6th. So he got ranked last time. So maybe that he just wants to go a little bit earlier, but he just seems overmatched in here. He won a maiden optional claiming race, and then he was no threat against Starter Allowance Company. And now he's stepping up to face some good horses, including number 8, Catching Freedom, your morning line favorite in here, and definitely the one to beat. 7 starts, 3 wins, 2 third-place finishes. And for Catching Freedom, he won his career debut last fall at Churchill at 1 mile, and then he disappointed in his second career start. He was the beaten favorite in a 10-horse field. The Smarty Jones Stakes, he rallied from off the pace to win that one. The Risen Star Stakes, Sierra Leone was able to rally to win that one when Track Phantom was up there controlling the pace, and then Catching Freedom was a clear 3rd in that race. And then Catching Freedom won the Grade 2 Louisiana Derby in an 11-horse field going last to first. And then in the Kentucky Derby, he had a good inside trip. Like I said, he had a good inside closing trip. Race flow was in his favor. He got a great setup. He followed Mystic Dan. He just wasn't good enough at 8-1. 4th, beaten a length and 3/4. The Preakness Stakes, as I said, it was a wet, speed-favoring track. And on Preakness Day, and Seized the Gray controlled the pace and wired the field. Mystic Dan stalked the pace, and he just did hold second by a head over Catching Freedom. And Catching Freedom was well clear of the rest. So he was the only closer really making up any ground in the Preakness Stakes. This looks like a great spot for him. Luis Saez gets aboard, and Saez rode him one time. Fabian Pratt's been riding, but Saez is aboard here, and he rode him in the Risen Star Stakes when he finished 3rd. Saez does know him. He's the class of the field, and he's the one to beat. Batten down for trainer Bill Mott, facing winners for the first time in his 5th career start. This is the son of Tappet, and Close Hatches is the dam here. Excellent pedigree. This one has a versatile running style as well. So he's one that 7 furlong debut. 7 furlongs was just too short for him at Gulfstream. He just couldn't keep up. stretched out to 1.125 second time out. So Bill Mott, right off the bat, knew that he wanted to be a distance horse. And he was up on the pace. He had a clear lead in the stretch. Corporate Power beat him. You may mention, you may notice Corporate Power, or that he was in the Sir Barton Stakes. I mentioned earlier that Gould just missed in that race. Corporate Power was the horse that beat him, and Corporate Power just did edge Batten down in that maiden race at Gulfstream. And then at Keeneland, in a maiden race, he was the favorite, and he rallied from off the pace. He was third, beaten a half length. That was at 1.116, so I thought maybe that race was a little too short for him. He was shortening up. So then getting out to 1.25 he was able to get out there and control the pace April 30th at Churchill. And he was wiring the field by more than 8 3/4 lengths as the heavy favorite. He was under wraps, visually impressive win. They considered the Belmont Stakes based on that pedigree. They decided not to go there. They were looking for an easier spot. He has 2 bullet workouts at Saratoga on their training track for this race. And he's one that certainly could make an impact. So for Batten Down, I would expect that he is a horse that, with that versatile running style, if the pace is slower, I can see him stalking the pace. Junior Alvarado, who rode him in his last 2 starts, stays aboard for trainer Bill Mott. Mugatu is next, and blinkers off for this one. He was no threat in the Preakness. He was just overmatched. He was only 17-1, but he should have been more like 50-1 in that race. He was just overmatched from a speed figure standpoint. Plus, he's just 1 for 13 with a second and 3/3. He's one that's just overmatched in these big races. He was in the Bluegrass Stakes. He was 5th, beaten 7 lengths. He had no speed. And I think the biggest problem with him is he has no speed. And he's really been no threat in the stakes races. His other stakes starts, the Rushaway, he was 8th in an 11-horse field. The John Battaglia Memorial, he was 4th in an 11-horse field. They were on all-weather ground, but he's won on all-weather ground, so that didn't affect him at all. He's just not fast enough. He doesn't have any speed. He tries to pass horses late. The pace doesn't look that quick in this race. He has a couple bullets for this. Outside post just seems overmatched in every respect here. So obviously Catching Freedom is the one to beat, and I think that he has a decent shot in this race. Now, one horse that should be up on the pace, but I will try to beat in here, is going to be Gould's Gold, just because he had everything in his favor last time. That speed favoring wet track, the pace was slow, and he was up on that pace, and he just couldn't quite get the job done. Now he's facing better horses. I do know that he will be up on the pace, but I think that there are at least a few others, I mentioned them in this video, that could at least impact the pace. I just don't think he's good enough overall, that he's fast enough. He just doesn't have the speed ratings as some of the other top contenders. Copper Tax definitely can win this race, but I'll give out my top 4, and Uncle Heavy will be my 4th choice. I think he can rally from off the pace. And then Copper Tax will be my 3rd choice in here. I think he's got a decent shot to at least finish somewhere in the top 3. Catching Freedom will be my 2nd choice. He's the one to beat, and I think if there is a horse that can beat him based on those speed ratings, especially in the Louisiana Derby and then the Preakness, even the Kentucky Derby, if he can run any of those kind of numbers, he's probably going to win this. But I think if there's one horse that has the possibility to be this good, and that's Batten Down on number 9, I'm going to make him my top choice for trainer Bill Mott. He's one that the dam has had 4 starters, 4 winners, and 2 stakes winners. And for him, I like the fact that he has that versatile running style, and then he has those improving speed ratings as well. And he wants every inch of this 1.125 distance. In that maiden race, second time out, he just missed. As I said, Corporate Power just did edge him, and then Corporate Power was a stakes winner in the Sir Barton. And then he just ran out of ground at 1.116 in his Keeneland start. In his next start, getting out to 1.25 was a good thing for him last time. He was just able to use all that stamina and just run away with that one. They considered the Belmont, but I think from a class standpoint, maybe they thought he wasn't ready to face that many good horses at that time. They were looking for a race most likely at 1.125 where he could make an impact. And this is a spot we'll see if Batten Down is up to the challenge in here. So here's how I'll play this one. We'll play number 9, Batten Down to win. Exacta box with the 8 and 9. That's Catching Freedom is the 8. And then a trifecta, I'm going to put the 8 and 9 on top, and then I'm going to include the 4 and 5 in the 2nd and 3rd spots, and they are Copper Tax and Uncle Heavy. So that trifecta is 8-9, 4-5-8-9, 4-5-8-9. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment if you like this horse racing content. That'll wrap up my look at the 2024 Ohio Derby. And keep checking my YouTube channel. I'm going to come back and do a lot of stakes races in the 3-year-old division this year. A lot of stuff from Del Mar and Saratoga. I'm going to do the Haskell, the Travers, a lot of stuff going on my YouTube channel this summer from all the big tracks and as many big stakes races as I can cover. And until I see you next time, good luck at the races.